Sí. ¿Lo estás viendo o estás en
No, estoy abriendo cosas.
Está bien, no importa, adelante, no importa.
Pues ya son las 9.
Ok, Ana, go ahead.
¿Les parece que empecemos?
Yes.
Muy bien. Mirta.
Sí, perfecto.
Ok. Pues buenos días a todos. Yo soy Ana López Mestre, soy la directora general de American Chamber. Para quien no me conozcan, bienvenidos. Me da mucho gusto que hoy podamos empezar el día con una conversación que estoy segura que va a ser muy interesante. Tenemos 3 magníficos invitados para un tema que creo que a todos nos va a enriquecer mucho, y voy a pasar a dar una breve introducción en inglés. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this conversation about management excellence, which is sponsored by the American Management Association. The AmCham community is well aware that human capital is a key element of competitiveness, and that in order to keep our companies driven, constantly develop our workforce's skills. Therefore, we exchange and promote best practices through our Committee on Human Capital and Labor Affairs, on human talent, workforce development, and best policy making for competitiveness, compliance, regulation, and the protection of workers' rights. According to Manpower's Talent Storage Survey, 54% of Mexican employers and approximately 66% of American have difficulties finding the right talent when they need it. That said, in the complex scenario that we face today, our companies and ourselves as individuals share a key role, and this is to upskill, reinvent, and continuously maintain ourselves attractive in the labor markets. According to LinkedIn, 6 of the top 10 skills that companies need most in 2020 are business analysis, analytical reasoning, emotional intelligence, collaboration, and persuasion. These are skills that all managers should have and aim to develop constantly. The American Management Association, AMA, has created a groundbreaking management program that helps organizations hire the most qualified managers through certification and gives individuals a set of recognized criteria to validate their qualification, including those 6 skills. This is why it is such a pleasure to be able to learn more about this program and from our speakers' impressive expertise. So I'd like to welcome all here today. We have Mr. Manny Abramidis, who is President and CEO of AMA. Also, Jorge Perez Rubio, General Director of AMA Mexico and a very active member of American Chamber. And Alberto Alessi, General Director of Manpower Group, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. Thank you all for being with us here today. Jorge, I will turn the floor to you.
Thanks, Anna. And first of all, thanks for opening a space in your tight agenda to be with us today. We appreciate it a lot. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. On behalf of AMA Global Mexico and Latin America, we are pleased to share with you why is excellence in management a source of competitive advantage in organization, and how certification awards this level to an individual who demonstrates knowledge, skills, and/or abilities in a pre-established set of standards. Certification validates an individual qualification in a certain subject. Today, we will learn how this can be accomplished in management. Before I introduce our distinguished presenters, I'd like to mention that first, we will take a close and quick look into the so-called skills revolution, in which Alberto Alessi from Manpower will direct this session. And later, we will hear about the new standard for management excellence that Manny Abramidis, our global CEO, will address to you. One only reminder, there's a section for Q&A or preguntas y respuestas. Please write your questions which will be answered at the end of this webinar. Having said that, it's my pleasure to present Alberto Alessi. Our first presenter is the Managing Director of Mexico, Central America, and Caribbean for Manpower. He is a man with profound knowledge and experience in service commercialization of human resources. Since 2013, when he joined Manpower, Alberto has been instrumental as a key executive in the startup operations of the group in Spain, Colombia, Venezuela, and Mexico, among others. He also acted as regional director for Manpower Group Solutions and Right Management, parts of the Manpower Group. Before he joined Manpower, he was country manager at Boomerang in Colombia and commercial director in Venezuela. Alberto has a bachelor degree in business administration from Nueva Esparta University in Venezuela and an MBA from La Laguna University in Spain, as well as several postgraduate programs at Tec de Monterrey and IPADE in Mexico. He has also been active as a university professor in disciplines of marketing, finance, and project evaluation. Alberto, thank you very much for sharing with us your thoughts. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Jorge. Thanks, American Chamber and the American Management Association for inviting me today and to talk about what's going on with the skills revolutions that we need in our organization. So if you may project the presentation, please. Great. All right. As Anna was mentioning before, we every year do a survey called the talent shortage. And year after year, what we found is that organization has more difficulties in finding the right people for their organization. And we wanted to explore more, what are the reasons, what are they exactly looking for in order to be successful in their business. So if we can move to next slide. And one of the questions was, what exactly are the skills that you are demanding in your organizations? And as you can see here, we have a lot of soft skills that unfortunately we don't have at the university or technical schools, and they are related to human activities, which are, for example, communications, analytical thinking, integrity, resilience, coaching, empathy. Those are most, of the demanded skills that organizations are looking for right now. So in next slide, please. What we can see here is those people that has these skills in demand on your left side of the monitor. It's the people that have the haves, okay? And that includes workers in cybersecurity, business transformations, accountancy, sales, okay? And these people mostly have ensured most likely to see wage increases, even in downturns, as we are facing right now in most of the sectors that are not essential for the economies, okay? More employment security, with skills in demand, okay? View the office as somewhere to socialize. One of the things that COVID-19 has been increasing is the digital working, the working from home, the home office, and this allowed these people that really have the proper skills to manage, their agendas from their home and the office, as a socialization spaces with the rest of the organization. They can skip, the public transportation, so they will have less propension to be infected, okay, with the virus, and greater flexibility, as I was mentioning before, in terms of blending work from home. those ones that are not actually working in these skills that organization needs are the ones that are going to be with transactional job, as you can see there, workers in hospitality, entertainment, retail, grocery stores. It's more likely that they will have unemployment, and they will experience this employment risk in short term. They will be the more impacted by reducing hours and reduce, their wages or their salaries, and more likely also to have, more cost, more risk, because they actually have to move on public transportation and so on. So next slide is it's about what exactly candidate needs, okay, to improve this. And what we have seen in several of our surveys is the crucial need of reskilling and upskilling our people. All right, and I think you will hear later on from Manny that actually this is, I think, for us the year of learnability. Okay, is and as we call it, learnability for us is the desire and the capacity for rapid growth and adaptation of one's own skill set in order to have a job through one's working life. And I think we have heard in several webinars that actually we have to stay employable, and to be employable in the future to come, we need, of course, to improve our skill through education, through courses, through certifications, as this one that Anna was telling us before, as the American Management Association, the certification, for example, in professional management. These are the skills that, again, we need in our organizations to have a successful model in our business. And in terms of what we have seen is the learning model that highly improve in candidates and in employees is that, of course, we have to have the education, the formal learning, as we were mentioning before, and it is courses, classes, training programs, okay? Then we have to scale this into social learning, and that is that we have to be working through the ecosystem to understand what's going on in our communities, in the, doing our networking, to have coaching and mentoring, and then actually the 70% to put in practice all this knowledge and the new skills that we have through our colleagues or our teams, is to have the experiential learnings, and it's to bring, of course, the theory into the practice as rapidly as the business needs. If we move to the next slide, please. And actually, very aligned on what the American Management Association is doing. We have been investigating with some partners to actually understand what exactly are the skills, the enablers that we need from our leadership to move on in situations of change management, digital transformation. And I think all of our organization are actually navigating through right now the coronavirus. And we have found that not all the leaders have actually the capabilities to drive their teams through these uncertain moments that we are living right now. So in association with the Hogan assessment, we, of course, as you know, Hogan does millions of assessments a year globally. We have found 4 skills actually after assess people and trying to understand the KPIs and the performance after they have this new skills in demand just learned, that we have these 4 skills that are really actually essential to drive excellence to our operations. The first one is adaptability, and of course is, you know, the leaders have to be comfortable with ambiguity, with complexity, and with the uncertainty of what they're navigating with their team in difficult moments. And actually is one of the first and important skill for us. Then is drive, and it means, you know, the hunger, the energy, the desire of successful that brings this inspiring model of leadership with their colleagues, with their teams, with the employees, under command, that they need to have this inspiring leader in their teams. Them, of course, endurance, and we're talking about resilience, the tenacious, and the willing to work through difficulties, even that we don't have in short terms the results or the outcomes that the company needs. Okay, it's the capacity of start again and move on their projects. And finally, last but not least, is the brightness. And when we talk about brightness, we're not actually talking about the IQ skills. We're actually talking about the curiosity that people should need to have, okay, for continuous learning. And I think what we have been discussing lately is, of course, the capacity of our leadership to actually move on, to understand better situation, to have a better approach mindset of critical analytics, and to bring all this four forces or the four enablers to win. So with that, it's a compiling of two of our main surveys, Jorge, and with this, I will pass it over to you. Thanks a lot. I think you are on mute, Jorge.
Now you can hear me.
Ready.
Excellent.
Alberto, thanks a lot. Certainly from your presentation, there's nothing that can be taken out. I do agree that reskill and upskill has never been so true that within the moment we're living today. I love your tagline, if I may say so, of move on, move up, or move out. That's something that reflects that we have to keep action in spite of the fact that we are navigating in very, very bad situations now in general. And I do also agree that learnability and employability are two strategies, so to speak, that we should follow if we look into how the companies are readdressing and repositioning through this period. Thank you very much, Alberto, again. And we will certainly be very much in touch, because I believe that we can work together some things additionals. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving onward, it's my privilege to present our global CEO, Manny Abramidis. Let me take a few moments to tell something about what Manny has done. Manny was appointed American Management Association International as his 18th president and chief executive officer in June 2017. Within the proud history of AMA that has been around for almost 100 years. Manny joined AMA in 1998. He has since served as Chief Human Resources Officer and Senior Vice President of U.S. Management Education, where he was instrumental to transform AMA in a multi-modality learning institution. He refined AMA's ability to meet ever-changing customer and industry demands by leading the development of best-in-class content and leveraging multiple delivery platforms for the teaching, publishing, and marketing components of AMA. Manny helped evolve AMA into a global, multifaceted professional education provider that delivers learning experiences in more than 100 countries. Prior to joining AMA, Manny was a senior HR generalist at Empire Insurance Group with the responsibility of leading all aspects of human resources, as well as designing and delivering executive development programs. Manny holds a bachelor degree from William Patterson University, where he was a member of both the National and International Honor Societies. He is often quoted in newspapers, journals, and media outlets, and also Manny serves in his spare time, quote unquote, in several boards. Manny states that AMA mission is to continue to be a trusted partner in developing talent with large and small organizations throughout the world. It's a pleasure, Manny. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Jorge. So I hope that you're all well. I hope your families are well. I just want to thank Alberto for that insightful presentation. It was lots of what Manpower has found, we have found as well in our research. I also want to thank the Chamber for having me and recognize the Chamber for the excellent work that they do. So in a nutshell, what does AMA do? We empower people and organizations through education, professional education, practitioner teaching practitioner versus academic based. So slightly different than what you would learn in the university world. What I'm going to try and do today is focus on management. Just to be clear, because we often mix terms, there are individual contributors, there are managers who manage individual contributors, then there are leaders who lead managers, if you will. So leaders of leaders. We will focus on the manager role. And I have quite a bit of detailed research I will share with you. I'll try and talk about why certification, what it entails, and how or what the process is to become. So I will control my own presentation, I believe. If we can get that up, Edwin, and we'll get started right away. So the new standard of excellence, very, very important when we talk about education to talk about how it's derived. So AMA, as Jorge mentioned during his presentation, we do business out of 12 countries, about 20 offices servicing about 100 countries. Now that's important because when you put a certification together, the word management, there is a question as to whether it means the same thing in all parts of the world. And the answer is we had to navigate fairly carefully to conduct global research with a central point of view from the US or the Western world, if you will, however, with a global influence, because many of us do have operations throughout the world. There are three concepts that we came across. So most organizations have a strategy, and that's not easy to develop, but once developed, it's not difficult to copy. So if you go on any website, you'll see what an organization's strategy is. And then the question is, how do you align your people with that strategy so that they can then better execute against that strategy? Very important concept. Where management focuses most of its energy is between alignment and execution. So they participate in a strategic process. They then are responsible for people, process, and technology, where they're going to align their people and hopefully get them to execute as best as they can. And we found that to be consistent throughout the world. So if we take a look at why management certification, which by the way is a very, very inclusive credential. So the answer as to why is AMA has focused its efforts and energies on educating professionals in specific competencies. And in having conversations with several CEOs, chief human resource officers, chief learning officers, and many other executives, something became clear, and I think we'll all agree, that talent is always one of the top assets. Human capital, talent, people, we call it different things, of an organization. And CEOs felt that they could build a better competitive advantage through their people. This is not groundbreaking information. I think we all know that. And of course, from the CEO, we get to the chief learning officers, chief human resource officers, and other professionals who are all focused on making their people better, or should be focused on making their people better. So we went out and partnered with ACT, which helped us do research, validated research on exactly what is going on in the world of human capital or talent. Where are the skill gaps? What's missing from high school or university to the workplace 3-5 years down the road when someone is positioned to be a manager, or 2 years down the road? And as I said before, there was an extreme heavy emphasis on real world practitioner experiences. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we made sure that we had an independent look at things. So the mission was pretty clear. It was to create a standard of excellence in management. And that standard of excellence, we believe, and this has just been launched less than a year ago, although it took several years to get to where we are, we believe that standard of excellence will one day become the rite of passage for all managers throughout the world. So the standard or the symbol of an excellent manager will be the person who has some level of certification, which is a lot more than just taking a course and participating. There's actually a challenging exam and so on, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I do want you to keep in mind that certification, whether it be in management, finance, project management, human resources, or any other discipline, is usually a very serious process for very serious professionals. And just keep that in mind as we go through all of this. So let's talk about the why in that the CEOs and senior management thought that this group of managers could be more effective and help their organizations. So the first question was, and this is US-based data for this slide, how many managers are there in the country if we were to just take a look at the US? And the answer was, if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's about 24 million managers in the US, or let me not call them managers, individuals classified as management. And 24 million, if you think through that a little bit, that's about 1 in every 5 employees, or 17% of the workforce, and 30% of the compensation. So this is a significant audience, very significant audience in the workplace. I won't get into too much detail, but if you're wondering if it's 1 in every 5 for every company, of course, the answer is no. As a matter of fact, the more efficient and effective companies were closer to 1 in every 10. But on average, it's 1 in every 5. And if you look at this population of 24 million, it doesn't take much guesswork to come to the conclusion that if there's 24 million managers in place, there's probably 2 times that many, another 48 million who one day would like to become managers. And this certification actually focuses on both, and we'll get into that as well. So this is just data in the US, my assumption, not my assumption, I know that it's similar in many parts of the world. It differs depending on industry, depending on scope of responsibility, the actual work people do, and so on. So here's some research that comes to us from several sources. So let's take a closer look at this. So AMA conducted its own research, and professionals agree that having managers certified would increase efficiency and better management. So 84% of professionals agree. And professionals would include individuals at the manager level, individuals aspiring to be managers or working for managers, and of course, leadership. That's a profound number. So in essence, what the audience was telling us is that there's room for improvement. And I don't think many would disagree with that. If we go into some independent research outside of AMA, you'll see that on the right-hand side, 58% of managers say they did not receive any management training. So imagine, we all talk about talent and human capital. I'll use those words interchangeably, and the importance of creating a competitive advantage through talent. And yet the institutions that were surveyed or that participated in the research, more than half, 58% said managers didn't receive any management training at all. So I'm sure you all know that the worst thing you can have is a manager who is either trained inappropriately or not trained at all. And less than half of the respondents said that's exactly what the case is. So it wouldn't surprise you that as you see that $100 bill burning in the lower left-hand corner, that there is in the US, now this is US data, 1 trillion US dollars in annual waste due to inefficient management. That represents about 5% of the US GDP. That is a very large number that many people would have a problem just trying to figure out how many zeros $1 trillion includes. It's a significant amount of waste. And again, this is independent research. Now, if you were to look at employees and management and perhaps some things that are difficult to teach at a university level, and to be quite frank with you, even at a corporate level, trust. We have talked about trust several times and in other conversations. Well, we're going to talk about it for the first time today. Something that is perhaps one of the most important things a manager can build is trust between the manager and their employees. So Harvard Business Review, or HBR, 59% employees trust strangers more than their own managers. Think about that for a second. So here we are trying to build a culture. We're trying to build success. We're trying to empower our employees. We're trying to align them. We're trying to execute in an efficient manner. And 59% of the people that we're working with don't even trust us, which is a scary thought. So when we saw this data, it further solidified what we thought we already knew, but it's always good to base things on research versus just your feeling. And the research is overwhelmingly in favor of identifying that there is a need and that need must be met. So this is something that I thought was extremely insightful. So research suggests, and this is US based, that 70% of the variability in team performance is impacted by their manager or supervisor. So let's think through that a little bit. Many of us have worked for excellent managers, and we know what that's like. We know what it's like from a professional perspective. We also know what it's like from a personal perspective. When you wake up in the morning and go to work, it's always good to work with or for someone who is a competent, trustworthy person. When you go home in the afternoon, it's always good to go home after working with a trustworthy and competent person. Well, 70% of the variability of your performance has to do with the effectiveness of management. So again, this has identified an absolute void that must be filled. So this was a call to action for AMA, and this call to action is not a small endeavor. In essence, what we're trying to do, or what we did, we think, is we boiled the ocean and identified this standard of excellence in management so that these numbers one day can improve and improve significantly. So in doing that, you have to base it, I believe that you must base it on research, which we did, but you should also have an independent advisory board. So in essence, we're basing this on about, I think it was about 11,000 people who participated in our own research around the world. And there's quite a few research reports that other very respectable organizations have produced, very similar to what we saw with Manpower and what Anna talked about with, I believe it was LinkedIn. So we're all finding something similar. The question is, what do you do about it? So we went out and created an independent advisory board to make sure that the actual credential, the certification, was not just AMA based, but it was based on other leading institutions, and in many cases, global institutions with operations in obviously multiple countries and from also very diverse industries. I must tell you, full disclosure of the logos here, and this is not all, this is just a sample of the advisory board. Full disclosure, the chief learning officer of Colgate-Palmolive, who sits on this advisory board, also sits on AMA's board. And Deloitte has had, first, Deloitte is an excellent institution, as many or all of these institutions are, but Deloitte has also had an influence. One of my mentors was a former board member of AMA for about 10, 11 years, and he's the former head of HR for Deloitte. And the current senior vice president, or I should say, chief people officer of Deloitte is on AMA's board. And he has some of his team on this advisory board as well. So the advisory board has played a significant role in making sure that the certification focused on what's needed most from this manager level of employee. And we thank him for that, of course. So what did we find? The research produced that there were 4 major categories that needed attention. And I'm going to get into these categories in a little bit and talk to you about the competencies or the subsets of these categories. So professional effectiveness, business acumen, analytical intelligence, and relationship management. Now, what I'm going to share with you is based on very, very detailed, specific research. It's a report that there's an executive summary of about 10 pages that I would be more than happy to share with anyone who wishes to have it. I will not share my personal information because I probably wouldn't be able to get it to you. But if you asked AmCham or Jorge, we'd be happy to get you a copy of this research if you wish to have it. So in looking at this and remembering that we're focusing on the manager level, right? So very, very narrow, if you will. In professional effectiveness, what came out? And I'll just give you some highlights. So communication, time management, emotional intelligence, and presentation skills are some of the subsets of professional effectiveness or competencies. So imagine we went out and asked employers, and they came back and said 82% of employers said that management's communication skills could be better. 82%. Now, these questions are subsets of questions and so on. That happened to skew on newer managers. But you stop and you ask yourself, well, how can that be? And then if you go a little further down, emotional intelligence, 70% of employers felt that cohorts of management could improve their skills. And 66%, something as simple as presentation skills. And this research, full disclosure, was pre-COVID when most of these presentations were done in person and some were virtual. Of course, today it's a little different. But you stop and you ask yourself, these are amongst the most simple things of all. How can it be? Well, it's very clear. Research suggests that a technical expert, usually the individual who is best at doing their job, is the individual who gets promoted. And if you follow some of the slides from before, let's think through this a little bit. So you're the best at doing an individual contributor job, which means that you're most likely to become a manager, which means that if you follow the Forbes research that I showed you a few slides ago, a technical expert can be promoted to manager, and 58% of those technical experts will receive no training. No training. With now having a primary goal of not getting the job done on their own, but getting the job done through others. And there's no formal training at all. So it's no surprise as to how we came to these conclusions. If you look at relationship management, just a little bit of highlighting again, you have things like conflict management, motivation, collaboration, influence. Some of this we heard before in the manpower presentation, delegation, coaching, and managing change. I will say that from a collaboration standpoint, an influence standpoint, because I think those are two that were brought up earlier, 70% of the people in this research said that collaboration skills could be better. 73% said that influence skills could be better. One thing that was on the positive side, things that I guess we have perfected a bit, of the top competencies that needed improvement or where we found skill gaps, delegation and performance management ranked amongst the lowest, meaning that the people who participated in this research felt that delegation and performance management was going well. So that was a bright spot and a bit of a surprise. So if we go into business acumen, so I won't give you too much detail except to say, projects, financial acumen, customer focus, and talent management. Now, what was striking to me was that the skill gap in customer focus, 66% of the individuals said that customer focus needed to improve. And talent management, which is something we're all focused on today, and this webinar has a primary focus on, 72% felt that managers could manage their talent better. So if your talent is one of your competitive advantages and you're looking to empower that talent, 72% of the people are saying you could be better. So obviously a significant room for improvement. And finally, analytical intelligence, critical thinking, 73% felt it could be better. And we'll go into analytical thinking, problem solving, and understanding data, which again was 70%. So these are just some of the highlights. If you'd like to have the full report, we would be happy to share it with you. Now, if we get into who are we talking about, let's talk about the people now. So who would be interested in certification? So the research suggested, you remember I talked to you about the US data where we had, I think it was 20-something million people classified as managers. I think it was 24 million. And I said, well, if it's 24 million, I bet you there's another 48 million who would like to become managers or are aspiring managers. So that population, whether it be in your organization or in any organization, 75% of those people said they would like to participate in certification for advancement purposes so that they can round out these skills that we just talked about or competencies. Others who are new managers, now again, tie this back to the research, 58% of new managers receive no training. Another 59% of new managers have staffs that don't trust them. Well, they're saying, they're asking for help. They're saying we would take this certification so that we can strengthen our skills. An overwhelming majority of 97%. And finally, experienced managers who probably are not going to be the first to tell you that they need help after they've been doing this for 10, 20 years. 88% said we'd like the credentials so that we could be recognized as certified. Now, I will tell you something that I'm sure you know. Years of experience does not necessarily mean years of competence. You can have a manager with 15, 20 years of experience who is not a very good manager. And you ask yourself why? The answer could be as simple as they never learned how to do it the right way, or even more dangerous, they learned how to do it the wrong way, or they never learned anything at all. They're a technical expert who micromanages and tries to do the best that they can. So what this standard of excellence accomplishes is very clear. It allows for management and employers and employees to understand that the individual they're working with has achieved a certain standard of excellence and has the necessary knowledge to do the job right. Doesn't mean they're going to do it right, but they'll certainly have the knowledge. So just to do a check on time, I'm going to walk you through the how. So what does this mean? How do people become certified? So first is an application process. You have to qualify. So if you have an advanced degree or higher education, a bachelor's degree, that will there's a list of qualifications and you'll get the website in a second. If you do not have a college degree, then you would require some level of experience and so on, but there are requirements. And keep in mind, this is a serious credential for serious people. To prepare, preparation depends. We have had people participate in this program who have PhDs in leadership and management, and to be honest, are professors in universities. And we've had others who've had 3 years of experience with a college degree, a 4-year degree. So the preparation differs. It depends on how good you are at taking tests. It depends on how experienced you are, how much training you participated in. But if I had to guess, I would say on average, one who engages in this process would prepare for no less than 50 hours and probably no more than 150 hours. And that's a very, very loose assessment. And how do you prepare? There are, of course, trainings that are provided to help individuals prepare, but there's also, and I'll show you this, the body of knowledge, which includes all of what I just described in the research in this book. And this is probably the best way to prepare, along with organizations providing education against that body. So then you get certified, and I'll tell you how that happens with the exam. And of course, once you're certified, like with any serious credential, you have to remain certified by continuing to engage in education, which is not too difficult for people who are serious about their careers, whether it be this webinar would qualify or other activity where you're learning. So if you take a look at the credentialing exam, what would you do? First, you register and take the exam at any PSI test center. So PSI is a third party that administers the exam in an environment that is designed for safe and accountable administration. And PSI has centers, thousands of centers throughout the world. The exam consists of 175 questions that test the knowledge against what we just talked about. And it's about a 3.5-hour exam. And yes, there are people who pass. And yes, there are people who do not pass, who of course can take the exam again. But I would say if you're a serious professional and you put in the time that's necessary, and of course you apply and you do what's expected, you have a very good chance of passing. I don't want to give you a percentage, but it's a very good chance. If you're a person who simply wants to sit for the exam, your chances of passing are they are not as good. So I will end with saying that this is an initiative that I couldn't be more proud of. The team and the advisory board and many of the people who participated in the research have really become part of the certification family in making sure that they ensured that this standard of excellence truly was just that, a standard of excellence that professionals can leverage and one day can help themselves in their own careers and of course help their organizations through this knowledge. So I will end there so that we have some time for questions and answers and hand it back to you, Jorge.
Thank you, Manny. I first have to say that putting this in a nutshell in only 16 slides reflects a work of more than two and a half years. So I should say that none of these slides is a flat slide. Behind each one of them, there's a lot of rigor based upon the findings that we got from our research team. And I will emphasize that we have that paper with us, and we will be more than happy to share it with you. And Manny, if you allow me, let me pass a little bit into Spanish, just to tell them how we are now. En el caso particular de México, estamos lanzando la primera fase del programa, en donde con gusto puedo decirles que ya hay algunas personas seleccionadas dentro de nuestra base de faculty que tomaron ya algún adiestramiento buscando tener la certificación en el examen próximo que será en el mes de noviembre. Y esta primera fase tiene que ver con ofrecer el programa tal cual en inglés. El examen en todos los casos de aquí en adelante será tomado en inglés, será contestado en inglés, pero los cursos y algunos de los documentos relacionados con el programa estarán disponibles en español. De hecho, ya hay algunos que están en español, como el manual del candidato. What I'm saying is that Mexico will launch the first phase of this program in English, and this is the reason why we selected to be with the AmCham community, as well as the distinguished members such as Deloitte and all of the very important U.S. companies that represent the base of the AmCham community in Mexico. So having said that, we would like to open the floor for any question. If you want to make the question in English, that's fine. If you do the question in Spanish, I will be more than happy to translate it. So the floor is open to whosoever wants to ask questions, either to Manny, to Alberto, and in any case, refer to Mexico, I will do that. Si algunos tienen preguntas en este momento, estamos a sus órdenes para poder contestar algunas. A ver, I have here a first question. Let me try to open it. Mirta, no puedo abrir. Okay. Tanya, hello. Thank you very much for the info. I'd like to receive the 10-page booklet and further info regarding the certification. I would like to know more about the cost of the certification, please. Okay, I can answer that directly. We will be more than happy with my team in Mexico to go through the cost of this certification, as well as to send you the information regarding the program itself. Michelle, Juliana, what distinguishes a certified manager from one who is not, and what value does it add to the company?
So I think that the distinguishing factor, again, if we turn back to the research, is knowledge. First, that they're formally trained. They fully understand, if they pass this certification, what a standard of excellence means for management. And organizations are trusting managers. I mean, let's face it, many of the leaders of institutions with a C in front of their title do not engage with customers as much as the line people. So if you think of a hotel, if you think of many, many businesses, it's those people who are being managed by an individual who are engaging with your customers. So that's just one example, but the standard of excellence is a distinguishing factor in that you have now been educated and have received a credential that proves that you have the competence or knowledge necessary to do a manager's job. Now, there is a leap of faith. Just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean you're going to practice it effectively. So let's be clear with that. But so this is step one of having the knowledge. Step two is actually putting that knowledge to work and in the process. And let me just go back, Jorge. I just want to give a little bit of insight on the, I'm not going to get into details of pricing because it's country specific and so on, but there is differences in pricing. If you're an individual who is interested in pursuing certification on your own, the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is to purchase a book like this, which is not expensive at all. It's very inexpensive, and prepare for the certification and then sit for the exam, which there is a sitting fee, but it mostly covers the cost. Institutions are a little different, and that's where Jorge and his team in Mexico can work with organizations to make sure that the training that is necessary to prepare someone takes place so that they have even a better chance of understanding and applying what they're going to learn in the certification.
Thank you, Manny. Alberto, do you want to add something to this question?
I think, as Manny was mentioning before, it's important to have, when you have people really engage in this kind of certification, I think the profitability, the performance, of course, raise up, okay? So I think, and again, for many of our research, it's important to have our leadership pretty aligned on what they need. Actually, Manny said something I think very important and crucial for all of our organizations now, and it's about trust. You can have, as you were mentioning, you can have a manager working for the company for 15, 20 years, okay? And maybe he's not engaged with their people. So I think this kind of certification, it's quite valuable for the individual perspective, and of course for the entire ecosystem for the business. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you, Alberto. There's a question from Elisa. Nice to hear you. Nice to hear from you, Elisa. Has a long time since we talked last. What type of international recognition gives this certification? Who issues the certification? Mexico?
So the certification is issued by, it's the AMA CPM. So we have tried to create an independent body that AMA has influenced, but you saw this advisory board, and it's issued by AMA CPM. And so it's a global recognition that includes management practices that take place in all parts of the world. But I want to be clear, I'm sitting in New York City right now in our offices doing this presentation. So there is a strong US Western world type focus, but it is a global credential. So it's issued out of the US.
Thank you, Manny. There's another question. Are any part of the tests practical? For example, emotional intelligence, or are they all written tests?
So the test itself is comprised of 175 questions, and it's not always the same 175. There's a question database, and even with the questions, professional item writers or question writers have created these questions. The advisory board has reviewed the questions and so on, but it's a multiple choice question. There is no application of your knowledge, if you will, in real time. However, I will tell you that The exam itself is challenging, and the questions are predominantly written by practitioners. So professionals like ourselves who wake up in the morning and go to work, if you will, predominantly by practitioners who have experience. So while you're not going to act it out in a group setting or in some sort of a role play, I will tell you that the questions are written by experienced people who have gone through certain situations, and the question is meant to test your knowledge or your comprehension of the concept.
Okay. This is from Walterio. Thanks, Manny, for the presentation. How long does the certification last? The recertification is annually?
So the recertification is every 3 years, and just very round numbers. And I know our compliance officer will come down on me on this, but think that if you're a professional who participates in these kind of webinars, the average amount of time an individual spends on learning is about 35 hours a week. Now that's based on ATD research, so Association for Talent Development. So it's about 35 hours a week, and that's global research. You would need to do about 60 hours of experience as a manager, education. There's different boxes you can check, 60 hours every 3 years. And the recertification process does not require an additional test. It just requires for you to show that you continue to be active. This is very, very common with lawyers, doctors, accountants, and so on, that you're required to have some level of activity to keep that credential active. So it's a 3-year process, and it should not be that difficult to stay certified.
Okay. I'm glad to hear this one that I'm going to read. Hi, you had me at the meeting invite. This presentation is just confirmation that I need it. Where can I sign it? So Ulises, we will be shortly in touch with you to drive with you of the several steps that have to be taken for this certification. Jose, thank you both for your time. I believe in some cases, HR management in companies has been permanently impacted by COVID, working from home rather than in person. Do you foresee any change in leadership skills and competencies? I guess, Alberto, you can tackle this one.
Sure.
In the case of Mexico.
Yes, and Jose, I think, asked for this. And I believe it's not in some cases. I think the HR management in all cases here with this with the pandemic, have, of course, profoundly changed, okay? Even from the very simple change of recruitment process. Many of our clients, for example, they really needed to have assessment in person, physically. Now, as we, of course, all know, we can have social distance, and of course, many of our processes have been changed from the HR perspective. Assessments that, of course, we have been doing both remotely and physically has changed for almost 100% remotely. In cases of what we need from our leadership in terms of change management, many of the mostly in the middle management, in the middle companies, middle-sized companies, what we have seen is that they were not prepared to have business as usual on remote mode, okay? So this really actually accelerates from the HR areas to have, you know, the business continuity plan on time, and to have the skills, the proper skills of the management to actually runs the business from their home. So I think this change for better. I think now we have better monitoring on KPIs. When we talk to VP or CHROs, most of the complaints is that my managers did not have the proper KPIs in place, and now that they have other teams at home, they don't have the tools to monitor their performance, okay? So again, I think for all of us in the HR areas, the pandemic brought us, you know, a better and different point of view that have to be addressed. And of course, this is going to be the new normal, okay? Not for now, but for the future also.
Thank you. To be respectful with the personal agenda of everybody, we have time for only one question, but please be sure in our case, and I am certainly agree with you that in most of the webinars, the open questions are never answered. This is not the case with AMA and the AmCham, so you will receive an answer as soon as possible. This is the last one. Thank for your presentation. Question: are multinational companies in Mexico facilitating this certification to employees as part of the continuous learning programs? We would love that will happen, as a matter of fact. Or this certification is a requirement or must to have to be hired in Mexico corporations and or multinational operating in Mexico. So this is a very broad question. I think one of the commands that the AMA directed with Manny and the rest of the teams worldwide, the idea of presenting this certification program is to open opportunities for managers to be better. Manny, do you want to close with this?
Sure. I will say that this is the first formal presentation that's been delivered in Mexico. We have already introduced it in the US as well as the EMEA region, and are starting to break into Asia where we have operations. But my assessment, I said this earlier today, is one day, now first, this is the only recognized management certification credential that we're aware of. So it's not as if there's 50 other organizations doing this. It's the only one we're aware of based on our research of substance. I believe that this will one day, as I said earlier, become the rite of passage within organizations throughout the world. So that would, of course, include multinationals. The same way you hire a professional and you often look at whether they have a degree, if they went to university, it will be, do they have a certification in management? And that I think will improve the performance of individuals and the lives of the employees, and of course, the performance of organizations. So I expect that this will be rolled out in Mexico very, very shortly through Jorge's leadership in Mexico City and beyond. And in the US, we've already had organizations who have created this standard within their organization so that individuals would have to participate and receive their credential within 1 or 2 or 3 years. So it's not immediately, depending on the training process that they have. Most organizations bring training on site. So they would come in and they take this as the book, if you will, and they would train against this book so that they could prepare their employees to realize that their potential to succeed in the exam. But the short answer
thank you,
is
Manny.
yes. You're welcome.
Okay, and Anna, I'll pass the floor to you for final comments.
Thank you, Jorge. Well, according to time, we need to close our session. I'd just like to thank you all for your very insightful presentations. Manny, it was great to hear more about AMA and this program. Alberto, it was truly interesting to learn more about the trends and the work you do at Manpower Group. Jorge, thank you for supporting this initiative. I'm happy we could do these, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for all the AmCham team in Mexico. Thanks, Mirta.
Thanks.
Gracias, Alberto. Thanks, Manny.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.